the message from Beijing is clear. They condemn this unequivocally and are saying that the United States cannot be trusted, and we have entered a new world where the only language that is being spoken is power. And that's what matters. That's the only way to engage with the United States at this stage. It is crystal clear to them and the rest of the world. The Europeans, as these little vassals, they'll just say whatever they want to say. Kaya Kallas is like, yay, now the Iranian people can pave a brighter future. It's okay, yeah. Right? Nobody cares what she says. Their words don't have any effect. What matters are these other countries, and they are ready, and they are gonna dump the United States. Like, this is the outcome of this war. And so that's why, I asked in the beginning, we never actually got to the answer. I said there's going to be two possible outcomes. The U.S. has to admit that it's no longer the global hegemon, and it has to withdraw and accept its place in the multipolar world, or that this is going to go nuclear. I don't think there's a third option.
Yeah, well, I'll say, I don't know that there's only two. There's always something that you can't see. Well, I'll just put it that way. But I think the first option is not possible. They're not going to admit that they are not the global hegemon. That's just not possible. They're not going to say, "Oh, we were defeated. Yeah, we actually overestimated our own capabilities. We've been behaving aggressively." None of that's going to happen. If in the end they suspend or end the attacks, they'll claim some kind of victory. They'll try to put lipstick on a pig, and say that they achieved their objectives and this was great and wonderful. But the thing is, it's just not going to work, and they will know that it's really not going to work. So there is a real risk. Again, this is what we discussed earlier. There is a risk of either the U.S. or Israel going nuclear if this does go really bad. We understand that that's there, because because for them, I think for both Israel and the United States, this aura of invincibility has become extremely important. It's obviously very important to Trump, personally, and it's something that he does not want to let go, of. And if it is really damaged and challenged, and there is that temptation to go nuclear. There really is. I don't know that it's going to happen. I don't think it's inevitable, that it will happen anywhere close to it, but there is a risk.
But you're saying that it's more likely we'll go nuclear than admit that we're not number one, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Then this day is going to come then, right? Because we are clearly not number one. At some point, the reality has to sink in and we admit it.
But we won't admit it. We just won't admit it, not for years anyway. We won't.
But not this president, but maybe someone like Thomas Massey gets elected president. But the problem is like, we're not going to make it that far, it's not, we're already in this critical state, My camera messed up a bit. I'm a little fuzzy.
Yeah, all of a sudden you went fuzzy. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will ignore it because I don't know how to fix it at this stage.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, if we can't admit that we're not number one, then how can we get an off ramp? We can't stop and pretend to have a claim of victory, because Iran is going to continue to strike our bases. They will kick us out, and they will keep on hitting Israel. And then Israel has the Samson option. So I feel like we're in big trouble.
Just can't believe it. I mean, I'm even amazed by how idiotic this is, even though I never expect, anything.
Sorry.
I never expect much from Trump, but I always had the hope that he would look for an off-ramp, but he has denied himself the off-ramp. It looked like, the Omanis right there at the end had offered it to him, and he should have seized it, but I kind of wonder what's going on. And then apparently, not apparently, just very recently, I think it was in a speech he gave yesterday, he says, yeah, we could start negotiating again. Are you crazy? It's just not going to happen. You have denied yourself that off-ramp. You had it. You could have done it, and you denied it to yourself. And so now you put yourself in it. So I just wonder, it seems to me, maybe I'm wrong, but the old Trump, I was never a Trump fan, but like I've said, he has a real allergy to real wars. That's been clear over his career. And he does like to, do symbolic, or more than symbolic strikes, assassinations, kidnappings, whatever, midnight raids. That's what he wants to do. And, or, bully somebody, the country into, acceding to at least some of his demands, a way, again, that he can achieve a cost-free victory. And he did not do that this time, and he had a chance to do it. And I just wonder, I think the old Trump, even several months ago, would have done it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he would have done it. I think maybe something has changed, and it's either you're right about the blackmail, or it's the Venezuela operation which we talked about, that gave him a sense of sort of invincibility. And it's just like, yeah, I'm the God Emperor and I can just do these things. Other presidents, were afraid to, but I can pull it off. I know that I can. And our military is just so amazing, that there's really no limits to its abilities. And so he did it. He did it. And I think he's going to go down as one of the great villains of history, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
The worst president in the history of the United States, for a number of things, but above all for this war.
Well, the worst and also the dumbest.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be combined. It's just
Right.
the worst legacy. I've never seen such a, there was so much excitement before because he was elected on this, peace platform largely, that he kept on saying there's no more wars with me. Biden is taking us to World War III. I'll make sure that this doesn't happen. Like that's a big reason that people were excited about him. They were scared about what was happening in Ukraine, and the Gaza genocide started under Biden. And so I just can't believe of just such a more insane story arc.
Right. Well, yeah. No.
And then the whole Epstein stuff.
Yeah. And a lot of people have dug up past statements he's made about Iran and Obama, criticizing Obama. He says Obama's going to launch a war against Iran because, which would be crazy, suicidal, it's just all these, obviously inconsistent with many of his past positions, but it has to be said he was never entirely consistent. And that was the point that I made, I think, even before he was elected. Yeah, he said these things that encouraged a lot of us back then, but occasionally he would say the opposite. He just would. That's always been Trump. But I still think that, that the older Trump would have taken an off ramp. And so I wonder, again, maybe you're right about the blackmail, or maybe it's just that he has developed this God Emperor complex.
It's a combination of the both, I think.
It could be.
I mean, there was that Epstein email leak that was going around. I don't know if you saw it. That just said that basically that Epstein said that if Trump is cornered like a rat, then he'll bomb Iran.
Oh.
I don't know if they used if it said Trump, but it said if he's cornered like a rat, with reference. Somebody can double check on this. There's been a lot of information going out, but and the fact, like I said, people are calling this Operation Epstein Fury instead of Epic Fury. It just shows you, where the hearts and minds of the American people are.
Yeah.
Trump's legacy is absolutely shattered, destroyed. And then that makes it even more dangerous, because if somebody is in that position where it's like, oh man, now I'm going to go down in history as not only the worst, and also the dumbest. And then like you can't live with that. So the only way forward is you get that Zelensky type mentality. We're going to win.
Yeah.
We're just going to win. And we just got to keep on going forward.
That's the logic of war, unfortunately, is that, he may turn into a Zelensky, or just he keeps on doubling down on failure. I guess there's one thing I just kind of came to mind, because you were talking about how the Chinese came out and condemned this, and they just say you can't trust these people. The Russians have actually been saying exactly the same thing. Say they've condemned, this action is, again, a war of aggression in very, very harsh terms, and also they have pointed to Israel's perfidy in this too, because it had been reported earlier that the Russians had brokered some sort of agreement, that Israel would stay out of it, and that Iran would not attack Israel if Israel didn't attack Iran. And the Israelis said, yeah, we Israel won't attack Iran first. And that was an agreement that had been made, again, with Russia as an intermediary. And the Russian foreign ministry just recently came out and said, yeah, the Israelis lied.
Of course they did.
So anyway, I think, this will have repercussions, again, in Russia, and with regard to the, in particular, the negotiations over the Ukraine war. It may just mean that the end result is that the Russians may say, we're not even playing this game anymore. I think it was clear they were becoming very, very cynical about it. But But this has, again, strengthened the hardliners, or at least the hardline position within the Kremlin. And yeah, so we can't even keep track of all the repercussions of this war. That there's going to be huge fallout. It's already occurring.
Yeah, and just the crazy thing as well is like how we publicly stated that we'll do this for a couple weeks. This campaign might take a couple weeks because that's really all we can sustain is a couple weeks. And now with the fifth naval base destroyed in Bahrain, it's going to take them forever to get to a place where they can load the vertical launch tubes with Tomahawk missiles or SM2s, SM3s. I think it might take them a week to get there and back into position.
Yeah, but I don't, with the SM3s, okay, each SM3 costs something like $16 million. And we only produce one a month. Those are the SM3s that are fired from the certain ships. With the THAAD, we produce, I believe it's 8 a month. And then, of course, in the case of the Patriots, we're talking about approximately 50 a month. So probably, it's just, it's not only that we don't have the stockpiles, we don't have the productive capacity to make up this, or what are we going to go back and wait another year, Yeah, it looks like, again, you can't use the bases there in the Persian Gulf. You're going to have to go, I think it's 3.5 days to Diego Garcia. Earlier, the Brits were talking about not letting the Americans use it, but I never believe that. I'm sure that the Brits always give in, But still, that's a 7-day turnaround, and it's not clear that they really have much over there.
Yeah, this is insane. So then that just means that Iran only just has to last for a couple weeks. We kind of admitted that we can only sustain these types of operations for a couple weeks, and I'm not even so sure we can. If Iran continues to pummel our bases and fire at ships, we might just be like, "Ooh, we can't get close enough to really conduct." Because my understanding is like the Tomahawk missile has a range of what? Is it 1,000 kilometers, 1,000 miles?
Approximately 1,000 kilometers, I believe, what it is for most versions.
Right, and I think that's about like the range as well of Iran's like radars and missiles to hit them, right?
So it should be pointed out that the Iranians actually did fire some anti-ship missiles at the USS
Abraham Lincoln.
Right, and they said that they first fired 3 ballistic and then the 3 cruise, and then after they didn't hit it, but they say that the USS Lincoln it was forced to retreat, farther from the shore. So again, it makes all those vessels that have to retreat. I'm not sure that they have, but probably, again, we saw what happened with the Houthis. They were forced to retreat. The farther out they are, the less they can do, the less damage they can do to Iran.
Yeah, I think the other thing that people have to realize about with this conflict is that the escalation is rapid. It's not like what we saw with the Ukraine war, where it started with the SMO and then slowly introduced new weapon systems and then mobilized. It's been going on and grinding this slow warfare. Here, the United States is not capable of engaging in a war of attrition. So that's why we want all out at once, because that's our military doctrine, shock and awe, and then we just these quick victories. And so after just a couple of weeks, we will be at that point. Or do we retreat and we go back and we close up shop because we can't sustain this? Or do we go nuclear? That's the thing is I think that this question is going to come up soon. I think this month, within the next couple of weeks. Hell, it might be coming up this week where we come up with that. Like, just think about how fast this has happened, how much damage Iran has done to Israel and the U.S. in the Middle East, our bases in the Middle East in just the past 2 days. And we're in trouble. We're in big trouble.
Yeah. No, we have a very volatile, ignorant, stupid, and narcissistic president, that has committed himself to this. And so it is, who can say with any great confidence that he would choose not to go nuclear? And then we have the Israelis, and we know, again, like I said, I think the threshold for using a nuclear weapon is pretty low. It's not like they're really concerned about human life in Iran. So yeah, we're entering some very, very, very dangerous waters. There's no question about it.
Yeah. Yeah, just this whole American political system needs to collapse. People can be upset at Americans who voted for Trump. And
Yeah.
okay, I understand. I'm glad to say that I didn't vote in the last election. I think that was the smart decision. But it's just the people have to remember what we were presented with as a choice. You
Yeah.
had the dementia Joe Biden, who started this war in Ukraine, and then, or people will get mad at me saying started this war, but anyways, escalated this war in Ukraine, dragged us in gave a blank check to Israel after October 7th that was led to this horrific Gaza genocide. And the guy can barely put a sentence together. It was that, or we got crazy man Trump. It's like, this is
Yeah.
clearly
Well,
this is clearly a broken system, you know?
yeah. Well, of course, it was Harris, but she was just no better. I
Yeah.
mean, she's a non-entity who was just going to continue Biden's policies. I think there's no question about it.
Right.
Yeah. Right. No, it's again, yeah. Look at what this operation is called, Operation Epic Fury. I mean, it just tells you the mindset of these people. This is grade school or maybe middle school level stuff. Again, this is alarming. There are a lot of very smart people in this country, and there are some very well-informed and wise people in this country, but none of them are anywhere close to having the levels of power. We have a system that somehow promotes the least qualified, sends them up to the top. It's just,
Yeah. It's just captured. I mean, it's Zionist capture. And I think we have to just recognize it and call it for what it is. That is a huge part of it. This is a huge reason that we're in this mess.
oh yeah,
The
especially this
primary
war.
reason.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, yeah, with this war. You can't say that about the Ukraine war, but I certainly would say that about this war.
But the insanity behind it all is that if Israel wants this so badly, but the clear, we've talked about this as well. Who's going to get wiped out from this? Israel. So why do you want this? Why do you want this? It's just they just believe in this greater Israel project so much, just the hubris that they have, just this belief in American power. And this has just been a problem, I think, for every country that has decided to put their security umbrella, just tucked under the United States. You have the United States provide them the security. We saw that, they look at the state of Europe because he's like, oh, we're part of NATO. We're invincible. Nothing can even touch us. And then we saw what happened in Ukraine. Japan is also in this boat, Korea, and then all these Middle East nations as well. They're just like, okay, well, this didn't work out. This so-called U.S. security was a scam. It doesn't provide us security. The U.S. isn't powerful enough to defend us. And we should, and we, by outsourcing it, we abdicated this responsibility, and we have no ability to do it ourselves now because we didn't have any attempt at sovereignty. Look at the power of Iran compared to the rest of the Middle East nations. Look at the power of Russia compared to Europe. It's because you chose to say, like, I'm putting everything in the basket with the Americans because that's just easier. They'll do, I don't have to worry about it. They'll just do everything. And instead, this is aging, behemoth that really can't do much and is outdated and happens to be ruled and blackmailed by the evil. This is the Epstein class. This is what we're saying. So it's just the whole thing. This is just such a crazy story, Dad. I just can't wrap around. Somebody's got. I mean, there's nothing in history like this, right? I mean, this is what's happening. Like this is crazy, right? This is so crazy.
It is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm getting too worked up about it all.
Yeah. I know this is a really minor point, but this is just the way I am. I think earlier I said maybe that like China is getting 70% of its oil from the Persian Gulf. It's closer to 50%. It may even be less than 50%, but it's still a substantial portion. But the thing is, they have prepared for it. They have adequate reserves so that, they can go for many months. And even if they're not receiving, enough to replenish their reserves, they can go for quite a while. And that's true of all these countries, again, South Korea, Japan, China, and Australia too. But but it's just not true of Europe. I mean, that's I know that I'm just thinking about this, just how stupid the Europeans are. I mean, that's the only thing we're going on about the American
European
political
leaders.
class.
I love
Yeah,
my
but it's
European
like,
friends.
yeah.
Just not Europeans. Europeans are a lot of them very bright.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the
Just
same thing. Is there are a lot of very bright, talented people, and a good number of people that, not enough, but that understand what's going on, but they're just nowhere near to having any influence over the policies of their governments.
all right. So what comes next? You think this will continue? The U.S. will continue to get pummeled. Israel will continue to get pummeled, and it's just a matter of time before we start hearing talk about using a tactical nuclear weapon to achieve our objectives.
We probably will. There'll probably be rumors. At first there'll be rumors. Maybe there's no intention to use them, but maybe they're just figure, God damn it, we got to frighten these Iranians into giving up. So they'll start talking about it. But there's always a chance that that talk may turn into reality. Again, there's nothing inevitable about it. Trump might just decide to, at some point, just realize, man, this is not working. You'll see his poll numbers, and he'll just declare because he just says all these crazy things. He'll say something crazy and declare victory. It's maybe he'll do that, or there's always a chance. I guess I have less hope of that because he obviously could have walked away from this at different points. There were things he could have gone with the negotiations. He didn't, and so he does seem to committed, and that's a scary thing if he's committed to it, kind of Zelensky style. Maybe there is a mushroom cloud at the end of this.
Can we can we hope for like an impeachment process to stop this insanity? And the Americans, this never went through Congress. This is an illegal act. Like, if there's any reason to impeach somebody, it's for this, right?
Yeah, well, that's right. Unfortunately, it seems like presidents never get in trouble for things that really matter, but it could be an exception. Right now the Republicans have control over both houses. There's a very good chance, in large part or good part because of this war, that's going to end and the Democrats are going to take power in the fall. But that would be not until next year that the Democrats have a majority. And I think then definitely impeachment proceedings will begin. But it could happen sooner. I mean, if it gets really bad, the Republicans will start to defect. They say that, this guy, if we stick with them, we're just going down with the ship here. Let's jump ship here. Let's get the hell out of here. And so if this war, continues on a very bad trajectory, we could start seeing noises. Now we're starting to see it among the Democrats who are just complete cowards and went along with this, helped, but now that they see that it's looking bad, they're beginning to make some noises. Those noises will get louder. And at some point the Republicans might join in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like we have a short timeline with things, the way things are going. We only have I feel like a couple of weeks. Do you feel that way? That's only maybe just a couple of weeks before this starts happening?
Well, it could be a couple of
nuclear
weeks.
Weapon.
No, again, I don't think it's going to end with that. But again, I say there's a real risk that it will end with that. Perhaps I just have too much faith in realism. We did see pushback again, right? Even from the generals prior to this, they weren't happy about this. Now they're doing it. They're following orders, and they've got their operations going ahead. But there is more realism in the Pentagon, I think, than there is in the White House. And if he starts talking about a nuclear weapon, maybe they'll go along with it. I don't know. Maybe I just kind of hope too much in the sanity of people. In government, I'm constantly, amazed. You say, well, they can't go that far, and then they do. So, I guess I'm just not going to say anything. It could happen.
Okay. Well, let's end it there then.
Okay. On that happy note.
On that happy note. Yeah. I knew this was going to happen. We knew that it was going to happen. But it still want to happen. I was like, I can't believe it happened.
Yeah.
That's like, and now, all right, well, the die is cast, and we'll just see how this plays out. All right, Dad, have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.